Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Fakhruddin. Today the topic that I have chosen is Edward Morgan Foster. At first, I'll discuss the biographical sketch of Edward Morgan Foster. M Forster was born on the first day of the year 1879. This novelist belonged to the modern age. Here he attained his early education because he was born in London, so he attained his early education here, and by the time when he was 20 years old, he had earned a respectable place among the literary personalities living in London and in the vicinity. In the same age, dear viewers, in the age of 20, he wrote a novel and tried to write a novel, but we see that it was never finished. And he then turned his gaze towards writing some stories and essays, etc., and he finds success in these genres. His first novel, Where Angels Fear to Tread, he completed in 1905 while he was in Italy. He had a visit to Italy, and while residing there, he had an idea to set a theme, to set the structure, the plot, and write a novel. So he had written there and came back to London. This was the time when the First World War was going to get started. The young Forster, who lived through the horrific effects of the war, was seeing the people in problem, in suffering the effects of the war. Dear viewers, during 1912 and 13, this young writer visited India, and he found that the relationship between the rulers and the ruled were not so promising. So he thought it fit to write a novel on the relationship between the two extremes, between the two climes, continuum extremes, the rulers and the ruled, and he wrote A Passage to India, which was later published in 1924. And this is to inform you that this was the last novel of Edward Morgan Foster. Let's discuss the main qualities, the distinguishing qualities of Foster's novels. At first, we see that there is always a conflict between good and evil in the novels of M Forster. Actually, his idea of a human being was quite different from the contemporary writers. He thought that a person is a combination of body and spirit, reason and emotion, work and play, architecture and scenery, laughter and seriousness. And if a person tilts towards one side, those qualities appear before the audience, before the people. So one has to be very much harmonious in both these two extremes, both these two opposites. At that time, when he had visited India, he found that Europe was degrading to callousness, barbarism. He found that Eastern culture is much more permissive than the European culture. So he thought that Indian conception of human personality is quite close to the emotions of the person, reasons of the person, because it was free from aggressive possessiveness. Second quality, we see that lightness of touch and sensitive spirit. Dear viewers, when we see the writer authoring a novel or putting forward his views, he does so with extraordinary precision and sensitive soul. And these are the qualities that must be endued with the writer. A writer must be a sensitive. A writer cannot be a writer if he is not sensitive to the minute details even. So these very qualities have been presented, have been fixed in the novelist M Forster. He had shown no weakness because his idea of personality was quite different, away from sentimentality, away from emotionality, away from extreme sentimentalism. Because sentimentality is the weakness of the person. Actually, his idea of civilized behavior and barbarous attitude was quite different. He says that civilized is one who have a room with a view. Okay, a person who have some point of view on some thesis, on some point, he must have a room to consider the others' points. So such persons are called civilized, and the persons who do not have the place to consider the view of other persons, he thinks that such persons are barbarous, or callous, uncivilized, coarse. Next, prose in rhythm. Yes, it's very appealing quality, a quality a person readily attracted towards it, because rhythm we find in, normally we think that it is found in poetry, but here we find that this rare quality is found in the writings of Forster. His prose is rhythmic, and we find this quality even in his first novel, Where Angels Fear to Tread, which was written in 1905. Faith in the individual. Next, this one. 20th century was the century in which the persons had developed the faith in one's own qualities. Man considered himself to be empowered by various qualities, and he can do anything if he wishes. So that is the quality which is found in Fielding's novels as well. His explicit faith on the individual can also be found in Passage to India, and this very quality earned him an extraordinary place amongst his contemporary novelists. Dear viewers, when A Passage to India appeared on the scene, the book received a lot of reviews, a lot of criticism from the readers, from the critics, but it earned a lot of praise. A year after its publication, the novel won 2 prestigious awards. Number 1 is the James Tail Black Memorial Prize, and the 2 is the Prix Femina Vae Heroes Prize. Next we see an insight into A Passage to India. If we divide it according to the aspects of the novel, we see there are 2 aspects of the novel. Number 1, political. Number 2, mystical. Politically, see that the area that the people were gripped in 2 kinds of tensions. First sort of tension is between natives and the Britons, because natives were the slaves or subjects, and the Britons were the rulers. And also with the tension between the two nations, you can say, or the two kinds of people living in majority in the Hindustan, in India, it was the two of the majorities were the Hindus and the Muslims, because Hindus considered Muslims impure, and same had been the thinking in the Muslims for Hindus. That was why the tension was there between the two communities. Next we see the mystical point. These were the political aspects. Now we see the mystical aspect. It is concerned, mystical concept is concerned with the search of infinite and the eternal. And search for infinite and eternal is found in Oriental religion, thinks M Forster. Okay? He thinks that Oriental religion, Eastern religion, has the infinite and the eternal, has the desire to find out infinite and the eternal. Now we see in a line about a passage to India. What does it deal? Passage to India has been divided into three categories, three parts. Number 1, mosque. Number 2, caves. Number 3, temple. And these three correspond to the 3 seasons of the Indian year: the cold weather, the hot weather, and the rainy weather. That's all. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.